Hello guys, welcome back to another video, and I'm going to say my channel. So name,
Reese's Pieces. What's your favorite part about Halloween? Reese's Pieces. You can't say Reese's Pieces everything, Jeffy. What's your favorite color? Reese's Pieces. What is that color?
Marvin, maybe he's saying he likes the color orange and brown.
And yellow. Hello?
Yellow and pillow don't rhyme, Jeffy.
Yes, it does. Santa Claus.
Stop getting so mad. What's your stupid costume in the rhyme?
I should
So what are we gonna do first? Let's carve pumpkins.
What's carved pumpkins? I asked. What's
Dobby.
carved pumpkins?
You can't rhyme your first sentence with well, we're gonna carve pumpkins, Jeffy. Come on. Okay, Jeffy, you're gonna carve this big pumpkin.
Yeah, I like teaching Dobby.
If my wiener was your pumpkin, it'd be the tiny one.
That didn't rhyme, Jeffy.
Reese's Pieces.
You can't end every sentence with Reese's Pieces. That doesn't count.
Well, rhyming's too hard, so I give up.
Let's
Dobby.
just carve this pumpkin.
What does carved pumpkin mean?
Baby sure it is.
Okay, you take a knife and then you stab your pumpkin like this.
You stabbed the baby pumpkin in front of his mommy! You're going to hell! Murderer! Murderer! Murderer!
You're supposed to do that with carving pumpkins in.
Murderer!
Come on, Jeffy.
You guys killed a baby pumpkin! Murderer!
That's how you carve pumpkins, Jeffy.
Hey there, somebody call the cops? Or should I say, Jedi? Hold on. Stupid thing. Oh, give it a second. It's supposed to light up. But, a Jedi? Isn't that sick? Isn't technology amazing? You know, like those Velcro shoes? You don't even have to learn how to tie your shoes. I sure didn't. Anyway, what did you guys really call me? My parents are murderers! Oh, were they killing younglings? Yes! That sounds like sick behavior to me. You, come here. Okay, I took care of them, but what's really going on?
Okay, we were carving pumpkins and we stabbed the baby pumpkin.
In front of the mommy pumpkin?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, actually, also, anyway, nevertheless, carving pumpkins is not illegal.
We were trying to tell Jeffy that. It's not illegal.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna go back home and pass out candy, which is
What?
what you should be doing.
Your favorite part is in Mario.
Jeffy, when you hear the door, you're gonna pass out candy, okay? There's one at the door. Jeffy, it's further away from you to open the door.
Oh, okay. Ow!
Jeffy, no, you're supposed to toss the candy in the bag.
We don't have enough candy to raise his cup. Yeah, raise his cup.
All right, look, you don't have enough candy, so you can go.
But he didn't put the candy in the bag.
Well, just go. Okay, Jeffy, I'm gonna pass out candy to the next trick or treater because you don't want to do it. There's someone else.
Be with the results, my lord, but we have one last thing to show you. Currently, this one is being used as an anti-magic barrier.
He gets a new stepsister, and she's the most beautiful girl in school. If you dig my recaps, don't forget to subscribe and smash that notification bell. The anime begins with two young people reflecting on how step-siblings are essentially just two strangers having become siblings suddenly and not spending much time together. The guy named Yuta Asamura thinks about how movies and books often portray step-siblings becoming romantic partners, having a relationship as a man and woman with the excuse of having no blood relation despite the fact that these fictional worlds are very different from reality. Meanwhile, the girl named Saki Ice reflects that people often say all siblings start off as strangers, but in the case of step-siblings, this doesn't change. They remain strangers until the end. Then they pass each other on the street without even noticing, as they are just two strangers. They go their separate ways, and Saki meets up with her mother, while Yuta arrives at his workplace, where he greets his colleague Yomiuri. Later, Saki and her mother Ekiko meet a man at a restaurant, and the next day we discover he is Yuta's father Teichai, who tells his son that he plans to remarry. Teichai explains that the woman works at a bar, and that he met her when he went there with his boss. He also mentions that that he has arranged a meeting for that night so Yuta can meet her, expecting his presence after work. Yuta is not bothered by his father's new marriage, saying that what matters is his father's happiness. After all, nothing will change in his life. However, Teichai warns that contrary to what Yuta thought, his life will change because he will get a new younger sister, the daughter of his father's new wife. Before the meeting, Yuta sees a photo of his new sister, a small child. Orphan Brat got the water dragon god sealed inside him, just to awaken his power to fight the god of all dragons years later. There was once an archipelago of 4 islands called the Ayaka Islands. 3 of them were inhabited by stupid humans, and 1 of them by the 2 elemental dragons of fire and water. These dragons were the protectors of the islands, and there was a legend about them. Long ago, one of the dragons, the water dragon, grew weak, and the fire dragon went absolutely nuts. The water dragon was the one which gave life, and the fire dragon was the one which took life. When the life-giving dragon grew weaker, the ley energy, an energy source responsible for everything on Earth, was disrupted. This caused the fire dragon to get insane. Ro had no chill and absolutely wrecked everyone. But one day, Gandalf arrives. He gave up his own life to restore the water dragon's diminishing powers. After this happened, the water was like, alright, we cool now, fire dragon bro. The balance saved the islands, returning life back into them. A brat named Yukito Yanagi lived on the 2nd island of the Ayaka Islands with his father Makoto, who looks like Ace from One Piece. Yukito had an older brother named Jingi, who his father adopted as his student. Jingi was very close to Yukito when they were young, because as you can see, he hugged him. One time, when they were playing together, baby Yukito held Jingi's finger, and his bending powers activated. Water suddenly started to form around Jingi's finger, coming from Yukito's hand. It created a portable swimming pool in the shape of a ball that started to fill up around Yukito and Jingi. Jingi was confused and scared. But before anything could happen, Makoto arrived and used the main expansion to neutralize his powers. Jingi asked what happened, and Makoto told him that Yukito was special and that his water powers were very strong. Jingi was told not to tell anyone in their family, especially his older brothers, Haru and Eika, because it was a secret. The secret was that Yukito just liked to get wet, and he's also the water dragon. He just doesn't look like one. Jingi liked sharing this secret with his master, and talked about it with him when the older brothers weren't around. Jingi thought Yukito was very small, and wondered if he would ever turn back into the water dragon. Makoto told him that when Yukito becomes older, he would be able to turn into the water dragon, and still maintain his human form. But even then, Makoto would have to perform a difficult ritual. He told Jingi that it would be fine since he would be the one performing the ritual. All Jingi needed to do was to protect Yukito. Jingi accepted this and held Yukito's hand with a smile on his face. One day, these 2 twinks, Haru and Aka, came home from their job of pacifying evil creatures called Aramatama with their master, Makoto. The 2 boys were Makoto's students, as was Jingi. They trained every day to become lay masters as well, just like their master. The master and his students were very close-knitted along with the mayor of the islands Inuo, as well as their landlady, Momoko. They were like family, and the students were like brothers. Despite the fighting between the students for their master's favor, they seemed to get along very well and always rooted for each other. Momoko would tell them to not fight in front of Yukito, because Yukito would ask questions. Haru and Eika would then stop fighting, because they wanted to set a good example for Yukito. This would make Makoto laugh and tell them that they are family, they should act like it. Afterwards, the 2 students would train, and Jingi would watch them and tell them to take it easy. Haru explained to him that he wanted to take over their shrine when Makoto retires. He wanted to be strong enough to do it. Aka asked Jingi why he wasn't training, even though he's also a student and is very strong at water-based lay mastery. Jingi replied that he was just built different and didn't need to train. But Makoto kicked him from behind and told him that he's not David Martinez. He was supposed to still train and carefully consider how to use his abilities. Jingi was unhappy with what his master had done because he was just joking. Aka went over to his master and asked him to let Haru preside over the dragon pacifying ritual. He would help back him up and help him become the next priest of the shrine. Makoto told him, nah, bro, Haru was not ready for that yet, even when Aka argued that they had helped perform other rituals. He told Aka and Haru that if they continued their training, Haru, with the help of Aka and Jingi, would become a virgin nerd, or simpler terms, a priest in a few years. Haru and Aka promised to do their best, but Jingi wasn't on board because he didn't want to pacify the fire dragon every year. Makoto told him that he would have to because the fire dragon just missed the water dragon. That's why it was lashing out. He was worried that the fire dragon would soon become an Aramatama. Haru asked if that was the reason they had to strengthen the barrier they put on the 4th island where the dragon lived. Makoto agreed that was the reason he didn't want them to to perform the rituals, it was a very important job. But Akka was worried that the fire dragon's suppressed powers kept increasing by the years. He wished that they could do more, but he didn't say anything to oppose his master. Momoko arrived with some Dairy Queen and helped them to a refreshing break. As the days went by, Eika and Haru continued their training, as well as their formal education. Momoko stayed at home with Yukito and cooked whatever the hell we're looking at. The brothers and their master had fun together, going on multiple quests to pacify Aramitama between the islands. Seasons came and went, and the unconventional family enjoyed every last one of them. One day, an earthquake started playing dubstep in the islands non-stop because of the fire dragon on the fourth island. Makoto decided to get the job done, while his students kept everyone safe back at home. Makoto hoped that he would come back home as soon as possible. He first went to get a weapon, which would help him pacify the dragon.
I would watch this.
While he was away, the earthquakes became persistent and
sorry.
scared even the Nakama, the small water creatures that show the harmony of the
Only
island.
boys
However,
so
Ake and Haru decided to
action
level up their stupidity and
ancient
take matters
gaming,
into their own hands. They decided that the best way to save the islands was for some noobs to go to the fourth island and pacify the dragon themselves. The two students tried their best to hold off the dragon from ascending out of a volcano. To their bad luck, the barrier which was holding back the dragon's powers broke, and this exhausted their spirit
Only
energy.
boys
They
so
tried to keep the dragon at bay,
gaming,
but the
but
fire dragon was in the volcano. The people on the other islands saw a volcanic eruption and decided to ride a cruise ship to Thailand. Jingi took little Yukito by the hand and led him to one of the evacuation ferries. Yukito couldn't comprehend the situation because he didn't even go to school. Haru decided to help Ake, which gave the dragon a chance to launch an attack. Haru quickly got Ake out of the way, which made him angry because Haru was prioritizing him over their mission. The dragon kept on attacking the two, and it seemed there was no way out until their master arrived. He told the kids to leave it up to him and get out. Ake wanted to help, but Haru got him out of there, which frustrated him even more. He didn't want to leave his master at the mercy of the fire dragon. Makoto realized how dire the situation was, and knew people's lives depended on him. His fight with the dragon looked like a volcanic eruption, and everyone was running for their lives. And just like Ace, Makoto died, and Akka and Haru found him at the end of the volcano. On the day that Makoto was laid to rest, Alto is a weak, ugly, disgusting loser who is on the verge of failing a grade despite being a world-class nerd. To prevent this, he accidentally summons a demon goddess who blesses him with the cheat code to become the strongest mage in history. The only catch is that he needs to clap her every day to pay for this power. But before this, being the embodiment of disgrace and failure, Alto gets thrashed by his teacher for being a total good-for-nothing deadweight, who can't even summon a familiar for dear life, despite knowing all the course books word by word. The old hag even warns him he'll become an eternal grade schooler if he doesn't form a contract by the end of the day. And Alto realizes his only selling feature, which is being named after a third-grade car, won't help him stay relevant anymore. Just as he's reeling from this reality check, Lilia, the #1 simp in his one-man fan club, runs up to him and asks if she can be of use to him in any way. Alto tells her she can't, not with her infamous pink hair of uselessness, and decides to give it yet another try and see if the Lords of Plot Armor will help him this time. As he heads to the library to cry in secret, his wish gets granted in the form of Book Kun, which falls on top of his dumb head. This loser quickly takes this charity gift back to his fancy dorm and realizes it's a book about summoning. Later, as he copies its magic circle on the floor and begins to recite some gibberish voodoo spell, his luck literally begins to shine. And a hot as hell horned demon lady stands before him with her plots on display. She asks him the important question, whether he's the one who summoned her here, but this man of culture is too stunned at the size of her giant cannons to say anything. The queen of fan service notices this and grins before jumping on top of him and wondering what it is that he called her here for, as she offers to provide him with her top-notch call girl services. Alto asks her to be his familiar instead, after which a weird glow of sunlight ends up giving them both matching tattoos, signifying their master familiar contract. Once the deal is sealed, the demon lady tells Alto he's officially her sugar baby now, and kisses him, sucking out his entire magic energy. As his weak nest faints from her pheromones, the demon introduces herself as Vermeil, and slides her hand down his exposed six-pack abs, all the way down to his plot. However, before this story reaches its climax, the pansy pushes her away and tells her to get dressed. Vermeil wonders why this idiot would prefer her with clothes on, but puts on a halter top 2 sizes too small to fit her juicy assets anyway, a sight that Alto's kinky ass immediately approves. Later, as Vermeil learns how and why she got called here after 1,000 failed summoning attempts from Mr. Failure, she smirks and explains that it's because Alto's mana is too powerful for mere weaklings to form a bond with him that no one dared to become his familiar. However, in her case, since she likes it big and potent, she has shown up to do inexplicable things to him. That's when Alto recalls from one of his class lectures that demons are indeed monsters, so he asks Vermeil why she agreed to get that ugly tattoo on him. She admits she wanted to unalive him the moment she saw his weak, disgusting face, but decided to let him live since he's the one who set her free from the book she was trapped in. This makes him wonder why she was trapped in there in the first place, and she explains it's because she slept with too many weak dimwits like him in the past. Not that he believes her. The next day, Alto takes his baddie to the old hag's class, but he immediately refuses to believe a weakling like him managed to bag such a hot babe. Vermeil steps in and tells the loser to suck it, and since Alto has more riz than his stinky old bones ever could, before showing him her tattoo. Though this king of all creeps is more interested in her plots than her argument. He lets Alto clear his summoning exam. However, before the two get to celebrate this historic feat, the old man asks Vermeil if she's satisfied with Alto, only to learn that she is. Lilia, on the other hand, fumes over where this second female lead syndrome came from and gets annoyed when she and Alto pack up on some hardcorepedia. Even the old hag gets jealous and tells them to get a room, only for Vermeil to remind him it isn't their fault he hasn't been laid in 100 years, and that, if all the other familiars are allowed to sit on top of their masters, she should be too. The oldie can't argue against this and focuses his pansy ass back on the lecture. Meanwhile, Lilia fails to keep it all in when Vermeil begs Alto for his thick and potent stuff and lashes out at her, only to make a joke out of herself. This clown still doesn't learn her lesson and drags her loser existence before Alto and Vermeil again. After another failed attempt at interrogating who the demon lady really is, she pulls out her school tie and challenges Alto to a duel. It turns out that in this Stone Age school, the one who wins the duel can ask the loser to grant one of their wishes, which in this case would be for Alto to break up with his demon girlfriend. Although he begins to chicken out, being the world-class loser that he is, Vermeil tells him to use Lilia's dumb move against her. Upon learning she'll have to do something for Alto if she loses, Lilia begins to imagine some R18 scenario in her head and agrees to it. Later, as their duel begins live broadcasting throughout the campus, the pink clown summons her equally ugly familiar, and begins a yapping session about how strong and powerful this windy alien is. With this, she summons a giant hurricane and meets it toward Alto, who immediately starts panicking. However, Vermeil steps in and tells him to grow some nuts before taking the attack head-on, almost as if it were nothing. As the demon lady shows her true, sadistic colors, Lilia realizes she's screwed. With this, Vermeil brings all her adult fantasies to life on national television while Lilia makes sus noises and finally gives up when she can't take it anymore. As she loses this round, the demon baddie reminds her she'll have to listen to Alto's command now. The masochistic bit, on the other hand, feels totally happy about it until the good boy asks her to become friends with the demon lady, an offer she could not turn down after she enjoyed getting punished by her so much. That night, the victorious baddie asks Alto to reward her with his juicy mana for winning him his first duel ever, and he soon finds himself stuck between her heavenly melons. As she simps after his loser aura, Alto asks why she needs his mana in the first place, even though she's supposed to be some badass demon queen. Vermeil explains how being locked up in a book drained all her energy, which she needs to gain back, and offers to use his eggplant to suck it out of him if kissing is too difficult for his virgin lips. Expectedly, Alto immediately turns her down while burning bright red with embarrassment. The next day, this power couple heads to school with all eyes focused on them, or rather, on Vermeil's plot cannons. Just as Alto asks her not to do something extraordinary, a high-level dragon familiar rushes toward them, only to be sent flying by Vermeil's pinky flick, while he lectures her over it, All the creeps eye her melons once again, much to Alto's displeasure. The pests don't leave them alone even after this, and the attention-seeking bitch Lilia runs up to them and trash-talks Vermeil for drawing too much curiosity. After ignoring her loudmouth, Alto attends some classes in Vermeil's arms, and later, as the two girls start World War III over who deserves to sit in Alto's lap during classes, a Rizzler called Rex shows up and introduces himself as the infamous Dragon Rider,
Wait.
whom no one has
Hey guys,
Start
come
World
back
War
for
III
me.
over
What?
who deserves to sit in Alto's lap
Well, I mean,
during
you could drink root
classes.
beer.
A Rizzler called Rex shows up and introduces himself as the infamous Dragon Rider, whom no one has heard of. His weak-ass Blackie yaps about how the lady with the huge plot sent his baby dragon flying, and Vermeil wonders if these clowns belong to some flop boy band who are going door to door to sell their bullshit sob stories. That's when Rex steps in and tells Vermeil to stop acting tough, only to turn into Michelangelo's artwork by Alto's crystal magic. Just as Vermeil simps after his high-class magic show, Rex breaks free from the crystal castle using his fancy necklace. He then summons an uglier version of Barney on crack, who even smokes fire, and tells Alto right now is the only chance he'll offer his chick to show him how sorry she is. He goes on to mention how thick and hot she is, which is exactly his type, and says he'll gladly accept a clapping session with her in exchange for an apology. That's when Alto steps in and refuses, only for the madman to unleash his ugly dragon at him. Just as the loser thinks he'll turn into minced meat, Vermeil hugs him from behind and summons a magic circle with the energy she previously sucked out of him. With this power amp, Alto creates an even more powerful crystal statue that devours the ugly Barney. Later, as Rex gets promoted to the ultra loser status, he apologizes for picking a fight with the wrong gang, and Lilia calls him a dumb idiot for trying his luck against the main character. Later, when Alto and Vermeil return home, she asks him what his plans for the future are, and he reveals that he wants to become the greatest mage ever. Just as Vermeil feels amused over this, he explains how all the sorcerers in the kingdom are divided into lowly apprentices, bronze squares, silver squares, and lastly gold squares, based on their loser percentage. The plot queen wonders if he wants to become a gold square, but this cocky dimwit reveals he plans to pull one on them and become a platinum square, so he can bag even more cash and chicks than the gold ones. His arrogance wins her over, and she rewards him by letting his ugly face feel her melons, before promising to help him reach his goal. Just as he questions how so, Vermeil begins to resume her call girl duties, explaining that she needs to replenish all her mana so he can stand in the Hall of Fame someday, making the lucky bastard cry out in surprise. The next morning, after Lilia thrashes a very happy Vermeil in an unsuccessful attempt to ruin her day, another loser shows up, who seems high on something sus, and practices ballet dancing with Alto while he praises him for beating the shit out of that dinosaur enthusiast from before. Alto later explains that this ugly dude is a rich heir named Marx, who despite his Nepo status is a total weakling. Right then, the old hag from before shows up and drags the three of them to the headmaster, including Marx's maid. The headmaster, who looks like a Dumbledore knockoff with sleep deficiency, reveals he'll be sending them on a test mission, after which he'll select one of them to become the next class rep. The quest begins in a shady forest where Marx shows up uninvited, wondering why someone as awesome as him wasn't invited when even his dear maid Cheryl was. This Rem knockoff reminds him it's because he's failing all his classes, only for Marx to go off on his own and summon his ugly-ass beetle, claiming he'll be unstoppable with her by his side. However, his adrenaline high dies prematurely when he falls into a steroid-amped pitcher, which starts eating him while he makes sus noises from getting laid for the first time. Cheryl rolls her eyes at him as she tries to break him free and drops out. With Lilia and Alto being the only ones left, they head to the cliff where the flower they are supposed to steal is, guarded by the infamous three-headed dog, almost as if a philosopher's stone is right in the area. Right then, Lilia pulls out her trump card, the invisibility potion that she created to stalk Alto in his bedroom,
Wait, what?
and decides to use it here. He reminds her how these dogs will sniff her bullshit from afar, thanks to her cheap dollar store perfume, but she points out how the
Oh, yeah.
dogs are sick with the flu and says she'll exploit it. As soon as she drinks the potion, all but her clothes immediately disappear, after which she begins to strip, something she's suspiciously good at, thanks to her probable side hustle. Once her panties fly away, she heads out on the battlefield, only to immediately feel embarrassed about being seen by both Alto and his way hotter new chick. On the other hand, Vermeil reminds Alto he still needs to win the race instead of waiting to see Lilia's bare peaches. His big brain wonders how he can do so and asks Vermeil to lend him the power she did previously. Hearing this, she immediately pushes him to the ground and shows him a glimpse of heaven before reminding him how their top-tier power system works. As she kisses him, Lilia ends up near the only dog head that isn't sick, and as expected, it sniffs her bullshit. As soon as the three screw her with their big growling combo, Alto turns them into fireworks with his newest app pull, only for the big guys to survive it. As they charge at him with full power, he tells Lilia's dumbbag to quit wasting his time and grab the flower. As the stupid bitch runs up the hill, Alto summons a magic circle and showers the dogs with his crystal confetti. This doesn't even scratch them, so Vermeil takes over the ass-kicking and summons a goat skull, which flashes a laser beam at the so-called villains. With them out, Lilia grabs the flower and, being the pick-me girl that she is, brings it to Alto in hopes of getting him to clap her. However, her invisibility potion suddenly runs out, and while she tries to cover her cannons, the flower flies away. Cheryl discovers it in the forest and later becomes the class rep. Meanwhile, Lilia swears she'll get Alto to sleep with her next time while Vermeil smiles as she watches him having fun. The next day, as Vermeil enjoys eating a crepe and discovers she has a sweet tooth, Alto pouts and wishes she was eating him instead. When she mentions she never had sweets back in her day, he realizes he knows very little about her past. However, when he tries to play the nosy boyfriend, a dragon power show led by a wannabe tomboy called Chris steals his attention. Later, Vermeil offers to share her crepe with him, and the pansy gets all worked up over sharing an indirect kiss with the woman he's been screwing. Later, as their gang of losers wastes time in the PE period, Marx decides to fangirl over Chris, the leader of the Dragon Riders and his self-proclaimed MILF idol. He simps over how she's the executive president of the student council, and also one of the 7 gold squares in their school, which pops Alto's eyes out in admiration. As he joins her simp club too, Lilia explains how 5 of these gold squares are part of their student council, and Alto wishes he could become one of those soon. Vermeil tries to comfort his wimpy existence with her warmth and juicy melons, only for Lilia's jealousy to push her away and lecture her about public ethics, almost as if she wasn't out in the woods but naked a few days ago. Later, as she whines over Vermeil's way hotter assets and suspicious motives, she notices how the innocent-looking Cheryl is wearing some hardcore baddie undies but ignores it and focuses back on the poor demon lady and her ill intentions. However, when Cheryl mentions it's probably because she loves Alto, Lilia's brain stops working, only to get back into panic mode when the Rem knockoff mentions how Alto must have already been stolen away. Meanwhile, Vermeil raids the boys' changing room and admires Alto's non-existent muscles, only to be thrashed later by a jealous Lilia who tells her never to peek at Alto again while admitting she'd sell her soul to Satan to get a glimpse of his hotcakes, traumatizing the poor boy. As they later take their loser walk down the hallway, the school's Kardashian club swaggers toward them. And while Alto simps after their cool Halloween costumes, Chris glares at Vermeil, wondering how someone hotter than her got into their school. Later, as Alto continues his student council simping even as he showers, Vermeil steps into the water and pushes him against the wall, telling him how she'll make him forget all about them and bring him to the heights of greatness. All the while, he blushes over how her soft cushions are pushing against him. Meanwhile, Rex earns a flying kick from Chris as a return gift for getting his ass kicked by some unknown weakling, despite his sidekick trying his hardest to explain how this unknown weakling had a baddie for a familiar, and wasn't half as mellow as she thinks he is. Chris doesn't believe it and kicks the X-Rays king in the head, and later asks him to lick his blood stain off of her thrift store, only for him to quit her little wannabe crime gang. This doesn't...
I wonder if we'll ever get a character that can ride a vehicle and Genshin Impact. What would it be though? Maybe a bike? Nah, maybe a car.
Only for him to quit her little wannabe crime gang. This doesn't sit right with the sadistic bitch, and she kicks him once again while fantasizing about beating the absolute shit out of Alto soon enough. The next day, this weakling ends up in a hospital bed where Alto and Co. show up to rub salt into his wounds, only for the Rizzler to act like the tough boy and blame a lover's quarrel for it. His underling rants that it is the doing of the school's top bit, and going by Shaunen rules, Alto decides to teach her a lesson. This brings him to a fancy podium where Chris stands in all her second-hand glory, claiming she'll beat some sense into his cocky brain now that he's challenging her for a duel. With this, she summons her fancy plaything, a metallic dragon, in response to which Alto grabs Vermeil, and the two roast her single act with a heartfelt kiss. He then creates some of his useless crystals, which Chris wipes out with
What is that?
her finger guns. Vermeil shields him from her as she thrashes Chris for being a vengeful dumb bitch, but she claims this isn't revenge, just some third-grade punishment, and flashes her fireballs at the poor guy again, only for his sugar mommy to shield him once more. As Chris feels startled at how a barely dressed, fan service chick tanked her powerful attacks, Alto decides to finally play the hero, and he showers Chris's loudmouth with a bunch of bigger and better crystals, which she survives by hiding behind her big, bad dragon. Once she's flying above them, she showers them with her fireballs and grants Alto one last chance to get down on his knees and beg for forgiveness. Alto, on the other hand, sticks to the rules and pulls out his talk no jutsu, asking why she looks down on a
hospital, and I hear I can't wait to get out of the hospital. So I'm thinking I'm gonna do the right thing, and I'm gonna help him, and I'm gonna end his suffering and pull the plug. So I do, and he flatlines, and all the nurses come running into the room, and I just say that I tripped on the power cord, and they believe me. And then, come to find out, what did he leave me in his will? A sofa. Can you believe that?
They're people so easily. She explains it's because she flies on a dragon's back that all that exists beneath her is either insects or rats. A rich chick's typical capitalist bullshit. She continues to rain on them while yapping about how cool and hot she is. Vermeil, on the other hand, claims she'll shut her up once and for all and lends Alto all her chakra to help him push a harder and longer crystal rod at the arrogant little chick, making her question how these two still have so much energy, as she answers them with a laser bolt of her own and a psychotic grin. The clash turns to smoke, which Vermeil and Alto use to their advantage to land a surprise attack on her, while she still reels from the shock. Seeing them suddenly in midair, Alto uses his final crystal and bag full of Riz to knock her out, a historic feat that everyone in school celebrates. Later, as Alto manages to become a local low-grade celebrity, Cheryl holds back a very angry Lilia from committing 100 human rights violations. Right then, a DILF approaches Alto and tells him to choose his battles wisely in the future. This high and mighty guy is the school professor, Obsidian, a walking chick magnet who later pats Alto's head to wish him luck. As he leaves with all those clingy chicks, Alto asks Lilia if he's her type too, only to barely survive her next attempt at committing human rights violations. Meanwhile, as Chris gets demoted to the school janitor
So how do you think Jenny's vegan
level, Rex the Rizzler approaches her and wonders why she's doing these lowly chores. She apologizes to him for being a bitch, which only turns him on, and he grabs the broom from her, mentioning how they can finally screw each other now that they are at the bottom tier of the capitalist chain. That night, Vermeil sneaks up to Alto in his bed too, and steals a kiss, only for him to lecture her on morals and privacy later. The demon lady insists those only apply to humans and demands that he pay her back for helping him defeat Chris, only for him to pull his final card at her. He insists one should only kiss somebody they love, only for Vermeil to claim she already loves him too much, and he fails to hold her back when she jumps on him again for an R-rated workout session. The following day at school, he can't help but recall her confession, which makes him practically non-functional. To fix himself, he approaches the locker Mr. Obsidian, asking whether a demon can fall in love with a human. He immediately asks which Wattpad dark romance he's currently smitten with, and although Alto denies having such fetishes, Obsidian tells him the only case in which this is possible is when a succubus lusts after a mage's magic, hitting right at the bullseye. That night, Vermeil notices him acting weird and asks if it's that time of the month for him or if he's just trying to get her attention. He suddenly lashes out and asks if she's only staying with him because she's after his mom. Hearing this, this, the hot babe smirks and embraces him, giving him a taste of those hot plots, and explains that she drains his mana only because she needs it to survive. When he still pouts like a drama queen, she kisses him without draining his mana, leaving him stunned, and mentions that since one should only kiss out of love, he should try it on her too. However, the wimp chickens out on this once-in-a-lifetime chance to clap some demon cheeks and refuses.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
Meanwhile, as an ugly yet innocent girl enters Obsidian's office, he asks her to do something very important for him, something only she can do. After hearing this, she throws herself in his arms with a cliched love confession. Surprisingly, this creep uses his face card to his advantage and hugs her, claiming that he loves her back, only to bare his fangs and inject her with some sus drug later. That night, she's discovered comatose and frozen in her room, a gossip that instantly reaches the student council vice president, Ryuga, who calculates she's the third fallen victim to an ongoing in-school conspiracy. A committee member, Jessica, who runs the president's fan club as a side hobby, mentions how hard it was to recover her from the ice-covered room, and Ryuga's big brain deduces that a silver mage, such as the victim, wouldn't have possessed enough magic to do so herself. He believes that there's a cliched mastermind behind this whole ordeal, and wants to set it aside for the time being. However, Jessica mentions how upset their dear president is because of this, and threatens him into solving this crime thriller mystery first and foremost. At night, Aldo is working on his next class project, which requires him to write a report on his familiar, for the sake of which he measures Vermeil's towering height while mourning the lack of inches in his measly existence. Although the demon babe insists he has enough of those inches where they actually matter, he still mulls over his lack of luck in the Riz department. Just as he turns around from his self-loathing session, he finds Vermeil stripping yet again, and she explains she's doing this so he can measure her sizes perfectly. Just as she blesses his hands with a feel of her soft melons, it turns out that Lilia, along with her familiar, and Cheryl is playing James Bond against Vermeil so she cannot exploit her dear Alto. However, when she hears about their ongoing master-familiar intimacy fest, she turns into a Super Saiyan and pulls out her invisibility potion, and the spare key to Alto's room to catch them red-handed. Just as Cheryl wonders why she isn't in some serial stalker prison cell yet, she takes off her clothes too, and heads out. On the other hand, Alto runs out of centimeters when he tries to measure the size of Vermeil's plot cannons, and quickly tells her to get dressed when his wimpy heart fails to deal with her top-tier hot chick aura. Just as the pro-stalker Lilia makes it to Alto's room, he asks Vermeil to get rid of her horns so he can measure her head circumference, luckily keeping her identity a secret. As the crazy fangirl stands in front of Alto's mini library, he presses her plot points as he reaches for a book right behind her, essentially sending her to heaven. While she reels from the pleasure wave, Alto writes sweets in the section of Vermeil's likes and heads out to shop. Amused at the tricky question, the demon lady adds Alto's name right beside it before following him out. Meanwhile, a Genjutsu-driven Crazy Rex kicks Chris's arrogant ass and slaughters her precious, overpowered dragon. As his tragic backstory unfolds, it turns out that Barney the ugly dragon actually hatched out of a huge egg that Mama Rex incubated himself. On his motherhood journey, he unexpectedly won the Nepo baby, Chris' attention, and the two became friends. Meanwhile, on his tight-budget shopping spree, as Alto looks for cheap, on-sale cabbages, Vermeil eyes the expensive sweets at a bakery, which Alto realizes his broke ass cannot afford right now.
You're broke! You're poor!
However, when he turns her down, she curls up into a pity ball and throws a childish tantrum, forcing him to agree with her groundless whim. Just as he does so, she blesses him with a taste of her melons, followed by a flavorful kiss, while everyone in the streets enjoys this free fan service. As an embarrassed Alto pushes her away, explaining why they should only do this stuff behind closed doors, her dimwit misunderstands and kisses him again.
You got joy.
Give me my phone. I need to make a phone call. Come on, Mimi, answer the phone.
A little boy walking around a military place where bodies are dropping left and right. But this boy has no trouble with this scenario because he is cause for all of this. He's only interested in finding a woman named Asaka. Suddenly, he finds her being held at gunpoint by someone we don't know much about. Asaka is surprised to see the boy, Yagiri, somehow made it into the base where she was kept. The person holding her hostage threatens to hurt her if Yagiri comes closer, but he just stares at her and then she falls down dead. Sokka doesn't know what Yogiri did, but he's just glad to have her back. Later, Yogiri wakes up by a different girl, who is shaking his cucumber. Sorry guys, I mean by shaking him. She introduces herself as Danara, and Yogiri asks what's wrong. But she's surprised how the f*** he has slept through a big incident that happened. There are bodies on the floor of the bus, and Danara doesn't know what they'll do. Outside, they see a tail moving, so Yogiri throws a